All right, everybody, welcome back. This is, I'm going to start recording now, so if you could keep the volume down, that would be good. Hello? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to finish up lecture number 10, and it's kind of hard to start in the middle of a lecture, so I'll review a little bit. Finish this up, and then talk about emerging trends and things with lecture number 12. I'm going to skip 11, which is on intellectual property, because we're missing half the people due to the holiday today, so... I don't want most of the class to miss that lecture, so I'm going to skip it and go to a different one that's not as important. Not to say that none of the lectures are important, as some of them are more important than others. Anyway, so I was talking about lecture 10 the last time. This is the one I'm going to finish today. I'm not going to start all over again from the beginning. I just want to review what it is that the lecture was about. It's enterprise infrastructure and metrics. And business continuity planning is what I was talking about last time. And I believe I got through most of the business continuity planning. Talked about software as an architecture, also software as a service, and talked about ERP and customer relationship management, some of the other things that are associated with it. We stopped at about slide number 30-something, around 36 or so, if I remember this right. Looking at disadvantages and advantages of ERP systems supporting network infrastructure, the infrastructure itself, in terms of the different topologies. They call them topologies. What they are is, the difference between centralized, decentralized, peer-to-peer, client-server, all the different configurations or topologies, as the wording goes. So centralized network infrastructure as a component, distributed network infrastructures, and distributed systems as well. So we talked about this last time. It's all part of the same lecture. It's kind of a long lecture. That's why I'm kind of reviewing it. And then we got into tiered infrastructures and the concept of there being layers. So the first layer is the single machine, the second layer being a basic client-server relationship. So we have some servers and some clients. And then the three-tier where we have clients, application servers, databases, and different components that integrate as well. And then a lot of people would actually put a web tier above this. So the fourth tier would be the web tier, and the web tier would be fourth, then application servers underneath that, then basic client server underneath that. So the concept of the tiering is basically an idea of separating out the functionality and putting it onto different servers and having all those servers work together to accomplish the big task. If you do that, then you've got specialty servers. You've got more bandwidth and you got more capacity essentially, because it's not all running on one server. What you don't want is your entire infrastructure to be working on a single server. Well, it's a single point of failure as well. But also for productivity, for efficiency, the single kind of computer system itself, not very fault tolerant for the most part. So, and by fault tolerant, I mean if there's a problem with the server, everything's down. Usually what we get now are problems with application servers, application or database servers. That's okay. It just means one or two features of the website aren't working, but the web interface is up. If we had a problem every time Google apps went down or something, then we would be running in a situation in which we wouldn't be able to type in, www.google.com or something, because in that particular case, the entire server would be down if it was all running on one. So in terms of tiered infrastructure, just keep in mind, the web client, the web server, database servers, application servers. Nice little architecture there. And then towards the end of last week, I was talking about success and how to measure it and the concept of metrics, so that a business professional or an engineering manager or someone working in the capacity of making those decisions can test to see if their decision was actually good, or whether or not it was productive or cost effective, or putting some sort of quality ratio on that. And then talked about the concept of benchmarking. Benchmarking the before and then benchmarking or taking a look at the after results and comparing the differences, and then trying to decide whether it was worthwhile or not in terms of the implementation. So we have efficiency and we have effectiveness in terms of the metrics. So in terms of the efficiency, doing something right, or effectiveness, doing the right things. It's kind of like validity and validation in terms of the software engineering perspective. Are we doing something correctly? Is the system working correctly versus did we find the right solution to the problem? Because we could have a solution that's working just great, but it doesn't solve our problem. So it's not really valid, it's not really effective. It might be efficient, but it might be not effective in terms of the concept. So we covered that as well and looked at some of the factors. And then I think I talked about bottom line and top line in terms of are we managing our costs and our bottom line, which is our costs and our overhead expenses, and we're trying to reduce that to make more money? Or top line, are we trying to sell more product in terms of the concept? So highly effectiveness versus high efficiency transforms. A high efficiency is going to help our bottom line, and high effectiveness is going to basically bring us more customers. It's going to help our top line for the most part. So in terms of the IT, in terms of the success metrics, and this I think is where I sort of stopped last time actually. So to pick it up from this point forward, we could be looking at an infrastructure-centric type of metrics, measuring the infrastructure as a whole, or maybe just a web-centric or call center or financial institution-centered. So it depends on what we're measuring. If you're trying to measure the big picture altogether, it might be really hard to see the significant changes that some subparts may have contributed to it. But in terms of the infrastructure metrics, it does make sense in terms of getting a measurement, and this would be a measurement of speed, efficiency, capacity of the technology. How many clients can we, or this would be a throughput, how much information can we pass through the system, how many clients can we help, or transaction speed as an example. How fast do our balance transfers work, or our purchasing engine? If we're like a PayPal as an example, the transactions would be associated with using the service, or if we're in eBay, using the service, Amazon, same kind of concept. How fast does it take for that transaction to complete? How many of them can we do effectively? And what's our system availability in terms of being able to take a look at how much downtime do we have due to backups or updates or something of that nature, and basically how often is the system available. I'm glad to see more of you are making it in. I know that your traffic is really bad today with the parade. Yeah. And the parking's kind of a hassle too. Anyway, so the infrastructure-centric metric here, measuring the efficiency, looking at the capacity, the accuracy as well. How accurate, which is actually kind of an interesting measurement. If we don't look at how accurate we are, we might be producing a lot of transactions, but every one of the transactions is coming up with an error. And then so that we have thousands of transactions that are occurring, but none of them are actually going through correctly. Well, can't you say, oh, we have thousands of transactions? It doesn't really mean as much in terms of the accuracy. Also the response time. How fast does it take for the system to come back with with processing whatever it needs to do? It's not necessarily response time in terms of computers or network connectivity. It could be a call center response time. For example, how long do you have to wait on hold, or do you have to wait? How long is the phone going to ring for before someone answers it? And then once you get help, how long does it take that person to actually help you, which is another type of response time. So although they have answered the phone quickly, are they taking forever to answer your question because they don't know the answer to your question and they have to go ask somebody else? Or, are they able to help you? Also, response time in this particular case is looking at the average time it takes to respond to user-generated events such as mouse clicks. And scalability, concept of the metrics related to how well the system can be adapted to increased demands in terms of scalability. So we also have some web-centric metrics that we can look at as well, measuring the success of our web and our e-business initiatives. So companies that spend dollars, millions of dollars on websites and graphics and different ways of improving the system to make it run faster and, make it run, put more features out there, yada yada. Well, you need to sort of measure, are those initiative dollars actually paying off? Are you getting more customers? Are you getting happier customers? Is there some sort of benefit to it? So you could put a bunch of web-centric metrics in there to sort of analyze that from a user's perspective. Also, unique visitors, a number of unique visitors per se. Is it always the same people coming back and forth? Or are you getting new people to come that didn't come before to this website? Total number of hits, not necessarily because you put it, a pop-up ad somewhere on a search engine and someone accidentally clicked on it. you're going to pay per the ad, or is it really, people who wanted to go to your website? So page exposures, conversion rate, also another one. Page exposures is kind of interesting. Average page exposures to individual visitors. What pages are they clicking on? What are they seeing? Or are they always seeing the same thing over and over again? It might just be a navigational issue. So if you have page exposure, which basically shows different parts because nobody can get to other parts, it might mean that your website design needs to be fixed or something, so people can actually navigate to the different parts. Conversion rate, percent of potential customers who visit your site and who actually buy something from the site. So, in terms of the web-centric metrics, we're looking at measuring the success of your web and e-business initiatives. So this is the click-through, which is the number of people who clicked on an ad, maybe taken to another site. The cost per thousand sales dollars generated per thousands of advertising dollars that may have been spent. Abandoned registrations, that's an interesting thing. Did people get halfway through the shopping cart experience or the registration experience and then stop? It may be a factor of the registration being too difficult, too long, or maybe it's just like you didn't hold their interest, or maybe they were tricked into the registration. They figured that out and then they abandoned or something. So measuring what happens on the website is very important in terms of the improvement of that website. So abandoned shopping carts actually happens a lot. A number of who create a shopping cart and then don't check out. So in terms of call center metrics, we can look at measuring the success of call center efforts, the people calling in. We can also, and a lot of these overlap as well. So you see abandoned registrations here, and then over here you see abandoned rate. How many people are going to hang up and call back? In fact, it's kind of funny how many people do call in, hang up, call back, because sometimes your chances of actually getting through the second time are better than the first time if you just stayed on hold. So people, have the psychology games, the call centers. But in terms of the abandoned rate, the percent or number of callers who hang up while waiting for their caller to be answered, or the average speed to answer a question, which is actually kind of interesting. So that's the average time, usually in seconds, it takes for the call to be answered by an actual person. Then you can also take it a little bit step further, and how long did the person take to actually answer the call? So in terms of call center metrics, we can also add this to the list, measuring the time service factor, percent of calls answered within a specific amount of time, such as 30, 90 seconds. Also, the first call resolution, which is actually kind of interesting. Tech support people use this metrics all the time in terms of, how many people did it take and how many times did the customer actually have to call to get their problem resolved. They want to try and minimize that, obviously. So the percent of calls that can be resolved without having to call back, having to repeat the process. Most financial companies will do financial metrics, but it's also important for non-financial companies, just regular old companies. Everybody should be doing some sort of financial metrics as well. And ultimately, the IT people must make financial sense. They must be spending dollars on services or features or websites or things that make financial sense. So looking at the metrics from a capital analysis model. So there's many different varieties of how we can do this and learning from the applications. And here's some examples. In fact, I think I may have gotten this far as well. This looks familiar to me, actually. But the payback method and how many years does it take to pay back an investment done in IT, the cost ratio, cost-benefit analysis, return on investment, the net present value. The interesting thing about technology investments when it comes to a financial measurement is that you don't always see it initially. Sometimes you don't see it at all. There's no benefit to it. Or sometimes the benefit comes several years down the road. Or sometimes you're not measuring to actually find the right benefit, and that the benefit is actually something that it's being masked by something else. Like the technology added more proficiency or accuracy to something. And that has another effect that is not being measured or not being contributed to the technology. So it's kind of interesting. Some people, they invest a lot in IT dollars or infrastructure or into technology, only to discover they'll never get the credit for it, which means something else will take the credit. Oh, we sent our salespeople to training program, so that's why they're making more transactions, or is it the fact that we fixed their database so that they don't have to enter everything in twice? They can only enter it in once. So it's really hard to really place credit. And it's always easy to put blame on IT and technology, but it's really hard actually for the bottom line to actually kind of just come back and give credit where credit is due. Those people never get any credit for anything. But does it make us stop investing in IT dollars? No. We're still going to invest in technology and we're still going to use it. So in terms of formal contracts for service level agreements and things of that nature, the service level agreement is the obligation. And it's between the two parties, whoever bought the hardware with whoever's selling the hardware or the software program. How long are they going to make it work for the company? So they have to include IT success metrics. The program that they're putting in has to add some sort of benefit to the organization. If it doesn't, then that might be part of the service level agreement. If you ever sold a solution and the solution doesn't meet the needs of the company, doesn't provide the benefit, then there might be some good resource for returning the system or getting a different system in place. Software is actually kind of funny, and so is hardware actually. You can get the same type of equipment, and not every company is going to use the same type of equipment, but it could work for some people and not for others actually, which is actually kind of interesting. And certain programs work for some companies and they don't work for other companies. So it depends on the objectives and what it is you're trying to solve and what level and quality of service you're trying to provide. So looking at service level specifications and service level objectives is important in terms of identifying that. And then we have the application service providers. So it's kind of like, sort of like what people do with DVR service now. So in the old days, you bought what was called a digital video recorder, DVRs. And you recorded. It's kind of like recording on a VCR tape. Stick a tape in, you press record. You set the timer for your show. That was a service you were doing yourself years ago. Now you actually subscribe to it. You get it on Netflix or you get it on a service provider. That would be an application server provider, providing you with the application of DVR service or video feed or streaming video service, which is kind of an interesting concept because in the old days, if you had a bad recording, you just complained to yourself, man, the tape's bad, I should get a new tape. Or the disc has got scratches in it or something, the bad quality. Now people just complain to the application service provider who's going to actually replace that, or give you a discount on the services if the video quality is not good or something. Usually, not actually, they don't do very much discounting these days because people are willing to accept the lower quality of service for a lower price. Alright, so engage in ASPU and do so with a software license agreement. You actually have a software license, a service level agreement, and a software license agreement. Both of them you actually have when you do video recording or a DVR kind of service through your cable provider. Talked about business continuity planning a little bit last time, just to conclude those concepts in terms of the continuity planning, making sure the business actually stays open, but it's more than that. It's whether or not they can still perform their transactions, guidelines for the organization to recover from the disaster if one exists, and what happens if we have an extended disruption. So, which is actually kind of interesting. Government shutdown in the previous months actually was a good continuity planning. What if the government shuts down? What about if you're a company that works with the government and the government shut down? What do you do? It was kind of like your trip into ITU today. What happens when there's a parade downtown and the roads are closed? You got your continuity you're planning. Well, I'm still going to get there, maybe, and you take the side roads, and then you find parking where you probably would never have parked before, perhaps, who knows. You got all these adjustments to make. Well, that's what a business does, and that's to keep going. You're just going to, oh, roads are closed, okay, turn around, go home. Some people actually do that, and some businesses go, oh, government shut down, okay, let's just go broke. Let's go file for bankruptcy, we're done. or you have backup plans or another route or another thing to do to make the business work while the government shut down, which is actually kind of interesting. A lot of companies did go broke, did close their doors, and then another sets of companies profited from it. Like financial institutions really profited by the government shutdown, actually. So some people made money because of it, and some people were able to use it to their advantage. And then other people went broke, which is kind of ironic. So business continuity planning in terms of methodology, we went through this already as well, looking at the different analyze, design, and this looks like a software development lifecycle methodology, and it is. It's one for business continuity planning, and it's very similar to a development lifecycle model. So I don't know if I finished this lecture or not, but I'm not going to go through the design, so yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I finished from the rest of it, but I kind of summarized it from 36 on, or before 36, excuse me. So, all right, so I think we can safely say we're done with lecture number 10. Number 11, I could do today, but in the beginning I was feeling like I was going to miss a lot of people. I think I still save it for next time, and I'm going to move on to number 12 instead. Number 11 is on intellectual property. I'm sorry? Which one? Thank you. This one here? No. This one here. We started this one last time, and we stopped at 18? Okay. Perfect. Let's pick this one back up, because today is kind of the catch-up day. So from what I hear, we only got about halfway through this one here if we stopped at slide 18. This particular lecture, the topic of this was on the information age and on information technology and on information systems in terms of the concepts here and the business that drives and must drive technology and how technology drives business in terms of the concept. And the use of the information resource as an example. So we know information technology is the technology that makes information systems work. Information systems are the input process and the output of the business processes. Information resource is sort of a database concept. It's sort of a housing of information as a resource, or information as a resource, which is actually all three different concepts. So the information resource is that intellectual asset, the hierarchy, the data, the information, the business intelligence, the knowledge. So every company actually has an information resource, whether they realize it or not. And it may just be know-how in terms of how to fix cars or how to educate people or whatever the company happens to be doing. And the information resource is collected and transformed by collecting data and turning that into information. And then once you start using the information as a resource, then you begin to realize that you do actually have value in that, hopefully. So the data is the raw facts, and it's the current temperature, let's say the price of a movie rental, an age of somebody. And then the information is the data that's particular to the meaning behind that raw fact, putting all the ages together and seeing what the average is or something, or seeing what the average movie cost, or how many actors have acted in certain movies or something. So as an information resource, this is an example here of a spreadsheet. We have two spreadsheets, it looks like Microsoft Excel actually, with some data. And we take all the data, we stick it in a spreadsheet. We could look at one particular piece of data, which is a piece of data, or we could look at the average, the youngest age, the oldest age, and this is just age information. And we get the resource. So this is the information, and that's the data. So the data is the individual components, and the information or the resource that comes out of it is the aggregate of it all. It's all of the information used together to derive some sort of meaning. So companies do this all the time. They make sales on a daily basis if they're a retail establishment, and then once a month they can figure out, well, what's our best-selling product? That's a resource. That comes out of a piece of information that's gathered from the data. So you take all the data, collect it all together for the entire month, and then you figure out on Wednesdays we make more sales than any other day of the week, which is actually kind of true for a lot of local businesses. Wednesday's a big shopping day for people. I don't know why. And then, or Sunday's the lowest day of the week. So if you're going to think about closing, you're going to close on Sundays. Most people go, well, people don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. Wouldn't they be shopping? No, most people shop Monday through Friday, actually. And then they shop before 5 o'clock at night, which is weird. Or, how often do they go to the bank? All these little trends in terms of their behavior. It's consumer behavior that comes out of, and not to say that everybody falls into the same stereotypes. There's some people that don't go to the bank during the week. They only go to the bank on the weekend. Or they only shop on the weekends or something. But long story short, that's the information a company is hoping to know about their company. So they gather it through a collection of data. When they get the information, then they can make decisions like who to hire, why are they hiring these people, what days to stay open, what business hours you're supposed to have, instead of just doing what everybody else is doing. So smart companies actually are the trend setters when it comes to that. So when data becomes information, you get a date, an employee was born, how soon will the employee retire, when will they retire, how will they retire, why will they retire, is it convenient to retire, all the information if you're looking at employee data as an example. In terms of like data becoming information as a concept. So the example I gave you was, what day of the week should we stay open? Or better yet, which salesperson do we really want to hire versus another salesperson? One of them might be doing a better job than somebody else. Or whose practices should we standardize? If you have multiple different ways of doing something, there's got to be a better way. And that comes into business intelligence. So intelligence comes out of business practice, that comes out of storing data, analyzing the data after it's turned into information, and turning it into a resource, then you get the intelligence. So it's collective information about customers, competition, business partners, competitive environments. So business information or intelligence is information on steroids. It's knowing what time to price things at, or what price to stick something at, or what color to make the product in, or what products sell with other products. So business intelligence is used all the time, even by your local grocery stores, actually, convenience stores. So, and it's not trend data. There's a lot of non-intelligence that people use, and that it's non-intelligence when they do things the way everybody else does something. So, which is actually kind of interesting because this holiday season this year, I'm noticing some different business intelligence applied, which is actually kind of interesting. I don't think we're going to have an electronic season like we had last year. People don't like the electronic season, so instead we have a very early season. Usually in California, in United States, California, Christmas shopping starts the weekend. Black Friday is after Thanksgiving, the weekend right after Thanksgiving. It started last week. So we're going to have pre-Black Friday, before Black Friday, because that has become the stereotype. It's become not business information, but what they're understanding now is people are shopping even before Thanksgiving. So even before Halloween, pricing strategies have already changed. Advertising has already changed. Shopping patterns have already changed, which is actually kind of interesting. So I'm waiting for this to happen in July one of these years, but it's happened in pre-Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving comes late this year as well, which is actually kind of interesting. So if you have a retail store and you're trying to bring product and you don't have your store stocked right now, you're not going to make it because the shopping is going to stop early. So it's actually kind of interesting. So if you have business intelligence, you're working in the retail market, we're going to have attendance. You're going to pay attention to economic factors and trends outside of the stereotypes, because the stereotypes are going to be wrong for the most part this year. So, okay, so attendance. We'll pause. Okay, let's return back to engineering management, where we left off before attendance. Okay. Hello, we're starting back up. Okay, so information resources. Yoo-hoo! Hello? Okay, good. This speaker only goes so loud. And because they haven't fired me yet, I still will continue with this lecture. Right, so, information resources. So let's finish this up. So when the data becomes aggregate, what I mean by aggregate is we're going to do something with it. We're going to add up all the ages. We're going to add up all the sales. We're going to add up everything that has to do with some business intelligence that we're interested in finding out. We aggregate it, put it together, analyze it, then it turns into a resource. Then it turns into business intelligence. So, and as I was mentioning before, in terms of the economy, to actually kind of take a look at what's going on right now in the biggest retail holiday of the year, which is our, our holiday season, it is seen as the biggest retail income area of the year. There's new strategies being taken, and those strategies are being driven by economic changes. And companies are trying to get dollars before the dollars are all spent. So a lot of early spending this year, and a lot of non-traditional hype and non-traditional type of spending, which is actually kind of interesting. So every year I kind of keep an eye out on the after reports to see if the country was in the black or the red, or what was the economic state. This year they're predicting a very, very early season, like maybe even 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, people will be done, which will be interesting. So I seriously don't think that's going to happen, but it'll be interesting to see how the dollar fluctuates and how the sales fluctuate. So if you work or you manage or you monitor retail activity, that's probably one of the most interesting things to look at, or consumer behavior in general, for the most part. And the word knowledge actually comes out of this, because this is how companies themselves learn how to survive and how to excel in these economies, by becoming knowledgeable. So it's a broad term that describes many things. In fact, the contextual explanation of business intelligence, actions to take to affect business intelligence in general, intellectual assets, patents, trademarks, all falls under knowledge. So if a company's not patenting their products, their concepts, they're not taking their credit for their intellectual property, most likely they're going to be ripped off further down the road, if they're not ripped off already. Or maybe they're ripping off somebody else, actually. There's a lot of companies that feed off of the knowledge of others, make a product that's just like somebody else's product. It's an imitation product or something. And they're trying to basically ride on the pigtails or piggyback or on the bandwagon of another company's success. So organizational know-how for things such as best practices also might be knowledge-oriented. That would be like, county transit systems, bus systems, train systems, planes, taking and using best practices for emergencies or for situations or things. So also timeliness. The knowledge makes absolutely no value to it, or has no sense when it's not timely. So timelessness, when you need it, hopefully before, so you can act upon the knowledge. It's also location-oriented. Did we have something else?
I am so sorry. I was hoping Joe was going to...
hold on one second. Let me pause this capture. Okay, so let's pick up back where I left off here. So the information resource, the quality of the attributes that are going into the resource, whatever we're adding up, has to be timely. We have to have this information before we're actually going to be able to use it, hopefully, or before we need to use it. And it also has to be of the right location. So no matter where you are in terms of, is it California data, or is it U.S. global data, or international data? So there's the location in which, is going to play a factor in how valid the results are, or how valid the data is going to be. Also the form, is it audio, text, animation, video recording? So sometimes the data is in the wrong format, it's of the wrong location, and it's in a bad time or something. Which could cause a problem. Also, there's a validity component to it as well. I'm sorry, do we have one more thing?
These two gentlemen.
Hold on one second. Alright, maybe I can finish this lecture today. Anyway, without any more interruptions. Alright, so the lack of the above can also create a garbage in, garbage out phenomenon. So everyone's heard of garbage in, garbage out in terms of the decision-making process. So the information resource, in terms of the organizational perspective, what we're looking at is the current state of the organization, the up and down kind of strategic goals, objectives, and things, along with the information granularity, the coarse granularity versus the fine granularity. What does that mean? So how much detail are we getting out of this information? What kind of information is this? And what kind of data are we looking at? And then there's this horizontal between the business units. It makes no sense if the sales force isn't getting any of this information, but it's all done in marketing and research or something. Or if it's all done in development or manufacturing, but none of the marketing people get the information. So there's a lot of issues in terms of the flow of the information and the resources that are being used. And it all leads to how well or how intelligent the business is going to be. So you can categorize an organization as being, business intelligence illiterate for the most part. And if you're having problems with your business intelligence and you're illiterate as a company, it has no saying on any individual. It's the company or the organization as a whole that's going to have a problem in the long run. So the flows of the information, the upward and the downward flow, it's like the left hand talking to the right hand in the organization and things actually working together. It's like when you have products that have defects, and then you make a bunch of product, you sell a bunch of product, and a bunch of product gets returned, and then they don't realize it. That goes on for years. People are just returning, like 50% of the product that is sold is returned because it has a defect in it. But the defect's never reported to the right people. Manufacturing people keep reproducing the defect. It happens all the time, actually. You'd be amazed how many products are like that. And you wonder, well, if we had some business intelligence, we could figure out that we had this defect, so we could fix the defect, we would actually be able to make money and actually survive as an organization. A lot of computer companies have died because of this problem. Like Compaq is actually a good one right there. As an example, that's a company that made really bad product, really faulty product. And it doesn't matter what they sell it at. If half the product is going to come back for some problem of some sort, and you don't know about it, you keep reproducing it for years. And it's so bad that people in the public know about the problems, and there's sites out there that, for third-party replacement components to fix the problems in the boards and in the, in the devices that you're trying to sell. That's pretty bad. And the company itself doesn't have the intelligence to figure out that it needs to fix its manufacturing. Then, it's either going to go broke, which is pretty much what it did, or merge with another company, which is kind of like what it did in the same process. But anyway, if you don't know, it got bought out by HP years ago, but they had really bad problems in their R&D, really bad problems in their manufacturing. The products themselves, the ones that worked were good, but the problem is hardly any of them actually worked. They all had individual problems. None of their products were very reliable in the long run. And nobody has any of those computers anymore because none of them actually exist anymore because they're all bad. They're all faulty anyway, and they're old, so. Anyway, upward, downward goals between the organization, horizontal between functional units, inward and outward, that's what I was talking about in terms of the product defects. That's inward and outward information flow. Is the consumer reports and problems coming back to the organization? That would be, is it coming in versus, and then is it going out in terms of the company actually responding to and fixing issues? So what information resources describe is the information, the internal information, the external information, the objective information, and then the subjective. So the internal organizational aspects, the environment outside, objective, quantifying, describing something that is known, or subjective, attempting to do something that is unknown. You're trying to figure out, how am I going to make the most sales during the biggest retail holiday of the year? How am I going to capitalize on that? And then using subjective strategies from subjective information to better manage your sales force and your sales initiative and your marketing and your drive, essentially. So people resources. People are the most important resource usually in an organization, regardless of what they're doing. So focusing on technology literacy, information literacy, and ethical responsibilities. So people resources, and why do we have so much noise in the hallway now? I don't know. Is this still working? See, now that I need the microphone, it doesn't work. All right, so the technology literate knowledge worker knows how to apply technology. We all know what the knowledge worker is. It's the person who's accumulating the data, taking the data, making it into a resource. Those are knowledge workers for the most part. Most people have knowledge working jobs for the most part. Information literate knowledge worker can define information needs, knows what type of information to take in as a daily part of their job, knows how and where to obtain the information, and then understands the information, acts appropriately based on the information, which is kind of another interesting phenomenon these days. And then ethics, the principles and standards that guide the behavior towards other people. Usually we have ethical issues with finance departments, accounting departments, and stock exchange departments where people can make decisions from personal perspectives instead of financial or company related decisions, and then we have ethical issues. Lots in the legal, a lot of ethical issues actually and a lot of legal issues actually in the recent years with big companies actually, and you wonder how in the world did a person get hired? Well, they were good up to a certain point, and then we have this phenomena between what's ethical and what's legal. So in the United States we have this legal system. Some things are legal, some things are illegal, and then we have ethics, and they don't work together in this country, especially in the business world. So we have something could be legal and ethical, or it could be legal and unethical, or it could be ethical and illegal, or unethical and illegal. So unfortunately, you have business people that try to make decisions with this scenario. What seems to be ethical ends up being, illegal and ethical at the same time, yet causes a problem. And then this is where the laws end up changing. So you always want to be having your actions fall within quadrant 1, both ethical and legal. But unfortunately, generally the ethic is generally going to be, because most people can understand the law, they'll stay out of the illegal zone. And it's unfortunate that sometimes it's ethical and illegal at the same time. As an example, buying stock is ethical. It could be illegal if you're an officer of a corporation and you know some inside information about what's going on. That's unethical. So now you're unethical, but you're legal. Because but maybe the government comes in and says, okay, now it's illegal for you to buy the stock. So then that's how the laws get changed for the most part. So the ethical system is not in line with the legal system. Well, it's kind of like Google. Think about it. I have a problem with Google recently, actually. They're doing a lot of unethical things with their email accounts. They're selling your information. They're mining you. They're doing it more than they ever used to. And now it's really come out in the public in the recent years. It's unethical, but it's legal. I mean, it's unethical because they're taking advantage of you. But they gave you something for free, so they don't have any hard feelings on that. You're not paying for Google. You're not paying for your Gmail or YouTube or anything. But they're going to gather, and they have been gathering a lot of information about you, and they're going to start using it. They've already started using it. And a lot of people don't like that. So now Microsoft is trying to come in and say, hey, no, we're not going to sell your stuff. We're not going to sell your family photos or your YouTube videos or all this other stuff that you have that you used on our server. It's all your private stuff that we're going to take advantage of, if you're Google. But then Microsoft and other companies will come in and say, we got the market opportunity now. People are starting to figure out what Google's doing. They think it's unethical. It's legal, but it's unethical. So some people don't think it's unethical, actually, which is kind of interesting. I think if you told me something and I turned around and told somebody else, I don't think that's really ethical. Especially, or if I learned something from you and then I took and I used it to sell something to you, or used it with other information for my benefit. If you came up to me and said, hey, you know what, Barbara, I got this great product idea, and I turned around and sold it, it's unethical. It's your idea. I took it from you. Well, imagine no privacy in your email. Imagine everything you're doing at a company site. Everything is being watched, recorded, aggregated. A lot of stuff private information is getting reused, sold. Well, yeah, this whole group of people, they like this. That whole group of people, they like that. Selling products. Or better yet, we know the connection between these people and those people over there. That's a different demographic. We got your demographics identified. Here, sell them products or offer them a service or something. Or, a lot of people don't care. They think it's nice. Some people care, some people don't care. So it depends on your ethical system, or depends on how you view it, I guess. But I don't like the fact that everything's integrated. If I have multiple Gmail accounts, they're all tied together right now. They never used to be, but they all got tied together last month. So everything I do on all my email is related somehow. I don't like that, actually. I wanted to keep things separate. So now I'm actually thinking about getting off of Gmail completely, just because I don't like my privacy being invaded. So. Information technology resources. So computer-based tools are people use to work with information, hardware, software. Anything could be part of the resource. The information technology hierarchy for hardware, as an example. The hardware components, the software components working together in a hierarchy. So as an information resource, actually, Google's a huge example of this one. All your friends, your Google Plus, your Gmail, your YouTube activity, all kind of separated out, aggregated together to become part of your profile or part of you as a consumer. And then if we can learn about you, what you buy in combinations with other things, how much money you spend on something, what you do, then we can take your consumer behavior and try to use it for our advantage, actually. And incorporate that into stocks or something, a stock analysis or consumer behavior analysis and stuff, which is actually kind of interesting. That's what's going on right now with all of the pre-holiday sale stuff that's going on, which is actually kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to see how much of the prediction of what's going to happen in terms of the predictability, how predictable people actually are, which is the interesting part. So I don't have to go through hardware because most people have used a computer before, input-output devices, CPU, RAM, stuff like that. Most people have used a bunch of software before as well, 2 types of software, application software and system software. If you're an engineering manager trying to put together an infrastructure, create your own Google, you're looking at both of these 2 types of architectures. Looking at the system, the operating system perspective, and also the application software. And then it goes back into, and this is where we have a second or third repeat of Porter's 5 forces model. So I'm going to skip through this because this is an earlier lecture that I decided to finish today that we have actually looked at. This is lecture number 3. If you're still looking for a good overview of Porter's 5 forces model, you need it for one of the assignments or a couple of the assignments. You'll also need it on the final. So, and then as soon as I mention final, people go, what? There's going to be a final? I think I've already told you a little bit about the format of the final, but I'll reiterate the point for those people who may have missed it. It's going to be an essay format. So I'll give you like 20 questions and you pick 5 that you like. So you don't have to know everything about every subject, but some of the questions might be apply Porter's 5 forces model to this or to that, or do something, tell me about the infrastructure, IT infrastructure of an organization, or tell me about how businesses can do business continuity planning, or what is business continuity planning, how does it apply towards a sample business or something. And what I'll do before is give you and kind of review the topic areas, pick 5 areas you like, come in and answer 5 of the questions. I'm not going to give you the questions, but I'll give you the topic areas, the subject areas. So definitely we have at least a couple of options for Porter's 5 forces model, so if you know the model, you'll be able to answer that question, no problem. Buyer's power, supplier power, so threats of entrance, rivalries. So there's a ton of Porter's model in this lecture actually. So the alternative framework here is the Run, Grow, Transform, the RGT framework, which works with top line versus bottom line. And I believe this lecture actually goes through top line and bottom line, which I kind of missed in the earlier lecture, which is actually kind of interesting. And I don't believe I've passed it in this lecture, but I believe it's actually towards the end. But outside of Porter's model, I'm not going to cover that because we actually have looked at that a lot so far. Actually, here we go. This is 2 other choices. So Porter's is just one of the models. There's 3 popular ones. This is the second popular one. The third one is top line versus bottom line, and I'll formally introduce that to you in a minute here. But should your strategy focus on reducing costs, which is the bottom line, or increasing revenues, which is the top line? Actually, I'll just do that right now. Here's a slide for it. So as I mentioned before, and because I skipped this lecture, I'm just coming back to it now. We've actually heard about this already, but let me just reiterate the point. It's a strategy for looking at and analyzing your business in terms of just 2 components. Is it a top line or bottom line strategy or component? So the top line is the customer. It's reaching new customers, offering new products, selling them new services, cross-selling them new services, offering complementary products. It's all about the external part of the organization. The bottom line is all about the internal part. It's about optimizing your manufacturing, your purchasing, your supply chain, processes, decreasing transportation costs, reducing costs in general. What you're paying for air conditioning in your store is your bottom line, actually. Minimizing errors in the process, fixing production issues, that's all bottom line. So bottom line is expenses internal to the company normally. So some people go internal, external factors. I like to go top line, bottom line. And the bottom line is generally just your overall operating issues. So if you're using that as a strategy, you want a competitive advantage, you want to make more money, you want to be more successful, you want your company to grow, you want to improve, you can do Porter's five forces model. Take a look at that from that analysis. You can do top line, bottom line analysis if you want to. Or the third one here is the Run, Grow, Transform framework, which is your third option. These are just three popular options. This RGT framework looks at allocation in terms of percentage of IT dollars on various different types of business strategies and sees which one is producing. Just start spending money. Run, Grow, Transform. Just start spending money and then figure out which one is giving you the best return. So it's not quite the most popular because it takes money to spend money, but at the same moment of time, you're not going to invest in areas where you're not growing. So you want to run and grow and transform. You're looking at how you're growing and how you're transforming. So, which doesn't need very much analysis. It's a real easy framework actually to work with. So on your top line and your bottom line being increasing the revenue, making more sales, reaching new customers, offering new products, new services, cross-selling them, side-selling them, upselling them, offering them complementary products versus optimizing the business on the bottom line. You're optimizing the operating of the business. In our RGT framework, how you allocate the IT dollars is the important part. What are you going to buy? What are you going to spend your resource money on? The run is the optimizing of the execution of existing processes. You can spend money on making new automation to optimize how fast your sales are working or improve the quality of your manufacturing or something. So the Run, Grow, Transform is not necessarily interested in top line, bottom line, nor is it looking at the five forces model either. It's strictly just dividing things out and seeing which one is our better return. So if we're going to put money on the running of the business, we're going to put automation in there. We're going to get everybody tablet computers or something, or we're going to make it so the salespeople are happier or something on their jobs. Who knows? On the grow, you spend money to increase the market share, the products, those marketing dollars, services that are being offered. And maybe it's just growing that department or putting new advertisements in or something. And then the transform, innovating the business process, changing the way you're doing business to transform to modern times or to improve it somehow. Add a new service, add a new feature, add a new product to the mix or something. So Porter's top line, bottom line, and RGT, if we look at the whole shebang together, Run, Grow, Transform, it's all value chain analysis. So chain analysis, value chain. So value chain analysis is a systematic approach to assessing and improving the value of the business processes. And it's all value chain oriented, which is essentially adding value to your organization's product and services. So if a company's not thinking value chain, not thinking about, they aren't growing generally, they're stagnant, or they're on the decline. So a lot of companies can actually improve themselves by looking at more along the lines of the value chain propositions and stuff. Business processes is basically just the set of activities that are going to be accomplished. And two types of business processes is the primary and the support. I talked about the value chain already earlier on in the course as well. So this lecture is going to, this is only lecture number 3, and I kind of went back to it. But we talked about value chain in another lecture, actually, that came after the first time I started this one. And it's nothing more than kind of looking at it from the terms of being a support versus a primary value. And are you going to add, in terms of the value chain and the business processes, are you going to invest in this section or are you going to invest in that section in terms of different categories of investment? Not necessarily IT investment, could be training, could be any type of investment. So let's see, value chain. Kind of looked at this already, so I'm going to kind of skip through it. Yeah. So now we can say we finished this lecture at least. Which was kind of interesting because I knew I was like, didn't I cover that already? And I'm thinking, no, I kind of skipped through it, but I kind of covered, well, the bottom line, top line, I covered a little bit later, but I did it without the slide set because somehow I missed it, and I missed it from this lecture. So I'll leave you with that today. And so this is only week 12, I think, or something, 11 or 12, 13, 14, 15. We have about 4 weeks left. I think we have, what do we, actually let me take a look at the calendar. Don't we go to like December or something? People are already asking me about the final exam. Let me take a look here. Isn't the 16th or something like that our last day for assignments? So I'm thinking we're going to have our final exam probably on the 16th is what I'm thinking. Which gives us 2 weeks in December plus today's 2 weeks in December, and today's the 11th, so we got about 4 weeks left. Yeah. So within the next couple weeks, I'll go over the final, and you should be doing your case studies, and you should be doing your assignments. That's going to add up soon. If you haven't started on any of it, it's going to add up soon. If you have started on any of it and you've turned it in, I'm going to sort of wait till we get a little bit closer before I start the grading. The problem is when I start grading it, I have to go back through and regrade the whole thing every time somebody new adds something. So it's not, the system itself is not really set up for expedited grading. So unfortunately I have to do everybody all at the same time. Otherwise I got to go through and redo it. So you get multiple grade group feedbacks that come out of it constantly. So I usually like to wait until majority of people have everything in there before I start grading it. I just looked at it the other day though, and I saw some good percentage of people are already starting to submit. If you wait till the last day or the day before, the EMS will go down and you won't be able to submit it at all. That's just the reality. So. Questions, comments, or concerns? As I promised, I'm going to let you out so you can enjoy the parade, which is probably still going on. All right, see you next week. Next week we'll have